in my presentation skills school, when I went to such a thing, I was encouraged to give a credibility statement at the start. And I think this possibly is a bit more like a session of the unbelievable truth. So you can see if you can discern where I'm telling the truth or not, or maybe I am. But I started as a software developer on the 2nd of January, 1980. And I think, looking at the audience, it's possible that was before some of your parents were born. And it's also the case that when I started work, the device upon which I was coding had no screen at all. It was entirely just a keyboard. So you can choose what you like. Suffice to say, that was quite a long time ago. And my career has spanned some development. I think you could say perhaps not a glorious career as a developer, but I have been in the software industry. I had 2 quiet years at IBM doing software stuff and managed to get a formal warning on my HR file for not wearing a white shirt. They did exist, these formal warnings. So, thank you very much for the slides. The list is our business to consumer activities brand and will continue to be that. But the session tonight is our emerging brand. Oh, go forward. Is our emerging brand, the Data.io. And this is to distinguish our business to consumer from our business-to-business activities. We've always had some business-to-business activities, primarily helping the Daily Record with a small amount of clubs listings or something. But now this is becoming the main thrust of the growth. We love our consumer activities. They're self-sustaining. They will continue. But this is the focus of the future growth of the business. And so the main thing to remember about this data, our data space, is all about live events information. And so the really key point here is the fragmentation and the difficulty in gathering this data. So yes, I want you to consume our data, and we'll get to that point. But at this stage, the main thing is to just get a feel for how dirty, messy, and difficult the data is. And that's why the rhetorical question is, surely Google should have good event listings. Well, they don't. Surely Google should have film listings. Yes, they do. They buy them. Sadly, not from us, but they buy them. So Google themselves are unable to crawl this data in a robust, scalable manner. I'm not saying they never will. Of course, we have the same as any of us with startups. We have to face that possibility that they will turn to our space. But at the moment, we certainly have a considerable lead in terms of our capabilities. So some headline numbers, they've been mentioned a little bit. We had a new peak. We have a pointer. We had a new peak just a couple of months ago of over 45,000 events on the site with 600,000 future performances. And I'm going to talk about the data structure and explain exactly what I mean, but the difference, because if you're going to consume this data, you need to understand the difference between an event and a performance. Yeah, we have a lot of data where we've got 60 plus users of our data. We're distributing our data in a number of different ways. The API will be the key one that I talk about later on. In our data, we have some 86,000 potential venues, that is places in the UK where events take place. At any one time, there's about 12,000 actively with a future performance of an event. I'm going to talk about the ticketing links. About 40% of the events have ticketing links. About 60% are ticketed, so we have a significant volume of non-ticketed free events. They are hell to collect. absolute hell, and that's the weakest area, but we are absolutely on it, and it is part of our portfolio. So many people say, oh, I'll just take a Ticketmaster feed and I'll take this and it'll give me some headline profile of what's on in a particular city. We are trying to go right across the board. And we do allow for website input. So if you're having an event like tonight, I should have actually double checked and put this tonight's event. I don't think I did. But tonight's event is an absolutely perfect thing. You go on the site and you can add an event. Anyone can add an event, and those go through human curation. Every one of those 40,000 at some level. So if we have James from the Edinburgh Festival Theatre, it goes down a queue. We know he's reliable. He's given us 10 updates on the data. If it's Random Joe saying tonight's performance at the Usher Hall is cancelled, it goes into another queue to double check and make sure it's good data. But we think the human curation of the automatic loading is the only way to reach the quality that we aspire to. So we are collecting this. We have some PhDs and all the things you'd expect, and we've always undertaken all our own development, so all our software is ours and our IP, and we've been seriously building this for nearly 10 years. So yeah, we have to source it. I'm going to talk a little bit more. Over here, how do we distribute it? We have 3 key markets, and I am going to talk about those briefly. But in yield management, so as you know now, when you book your hotel, the price is going to go up and down like the airlines, and that is coming to, it happens in transport as well. So we can help. We are a fuel for yield and revenue management systems. And I've got a case study on that. Then traditional competitiveness. So, we work with Visit Hull. They're trying to get you to visit Hull in the City of Culture year rather than visit York. And that's just straight competitiveness. And then there are a whole heap of services. We always aspire that we can get Edinburgh Council, this is fictional, this is urban fiction, that we can get them to agree to extend the green man on the traffic lights opposite the film house from 15 seconds to 45 seconds before the concert starts, and again when it ends. We can tell them exactly when the concert starts. So these sort of services require scale and quality of data, and that's where we're focused. So pretty busy here. On the left here, we took the decision that the only way to get this data at scale was to gather structured data. So, and where we cannot gather structured data, so we will accept CSVs and user input, we are going to create structured data, because we've got to put out structured data. And so we are collecting this from what we call the source, the box office of the theatre. And it may be an individual, of course. I think Ambassadors Theatre Group, who own the Playhouse, are listed there. That's 30 theatres in one feed. That's much better. But there is, Stockton Art Centre is there somewhere. One of those is Stockton Art Centre. That's an individual art centre in Stockton, and we are collecting the information direct from their box office, with their permission, I may say. So the collection, that is the source of our data. And so at the moment, we're regularly loading over 200 feeds at any one time. We then are adding the ticketing links. So yes, for the ticketed events, we want the ticketing links. For some events, we may have a dozen links. So you may have a Ticketmaster and a C-Tickets and an AXS and an Encore and a London Theatres Direct. They may all give us links for a particular event, and we have all of those. We actually choose to only publish a single one. Then there's all the deduplication and enrichment. We want rich listings. This is an infinite game. We can always go on improving the information that we receive. And then we are shipping it out in feeds. This is our magic engine. We're shipping it out in feeds through the API, and we have a free widget on the site. So any site search you can undertake on the site, you can help yourself and take the widget. So this is a schematic of our, and really in a way, this is what I dwell on, because the value in our business, we are fundraising at the moment and looking to open up in other countries. So we cover the UK, and we are looking for funding to go to the US and other international markets. the value we think in our business is less in the actual data, it's more in our ability to collect this data at scale, and nobody else is. So we claim with, I think, unchallenged claim that we have the largest, most comprehensive, highest quality data set for the UK today. This is very simple, but it is quite important in terms of thinking about consuming the data. So an event, schedule, performance. An event is one film in this case, Ghostbusters, taking place at a number of places, and that each place they will have separate performances. This is important because so many people, this is of course why a CSV doesn't work, because if you want to hang information, if there's going to be a Q&A at this performance with the director, you have to be able to hang data off the performance, or off the schedule, or off the event. So unless you get to grips with this structure, you won't be able to consume the data as a developer. So it is sort of pretty key to understanding the structure that we have. You see here that the new data.io, we are rolling out the branding. The API currently is still a list branded service, and that's just a screen grab off the API, which is at api.list.co.uk, in case there's any doubt about it. So here is an example. It's a real example. It is the Village Hotel just outside. We're working with the Village Hotel Group, who have about 30 hotels, and they failed to spot that Ed Sheeran had added a night to his tour. So they left their hotel at the base standard price. They would have put it up to £180. They'd have actually gone higher. Their price for a Six Nations night in this hotel is about £330. So that's not even their top price. But they would have certainly put it to £180, so they definitely lost £10,000, just short of £10,000 on that night. Now, of course, all of us would be delighted that we were the ones who got the £85. But I'm afraid in this world, revenue management and yield management is the coming thing. And I mentioned that before. And in fact, the National Gallery in London have got a big, I'm looking at Yasmin, Impressionist or Monet going on. Anyway, they've got one of these big gangbuster, huge touring shows. And they have actually, there are some murmurs about this, they've actually introduced yield and revenue management into an art exhibition with much cheaper prices for booking early and at certain times of the day, and when it gets busy, they're putting the prices up. So this is coming to going to the theatre, going to the Lyceum. You're going to see this creep into regular things that you think, surely it's going to be £10.50 and that is the price. Well, it isn't. This is coming everywhere. This is important to us in terms of building our business, because the value to be gained out of the data that we can have is greater to these people than it is purely to providing a consumer service. Yes, it's lovely to provide a consumer service. Yes, the hotel that uses this will also want to put that, probably not Ed Sheeran, but that one of these other events, so you've booked for the Saturday night, but you booked because it's your cousin's wedding, but they may want to tell you that it's the craft beer festival on that weekend as well in the confirmation email. And they may try and sell you a ticket to that and get an affiliate commission on that. So there are consumer-based, but this yield and revenue management is where we consider the value is in the data, the biggest single value. We are not working with all of these customers yet. But we are talking to all of these people already, and some of them are customers already. So some names that you probably don't know, but these are big players. That one's just bought that one actually quite recently. They are yield and revenue management. That's a revenue management system. That's what it calls, EZ, Easy RMS. Virgin Trains, we'll have to change that logo quite soon, but we're working with the media partner that is providing the on-train services, and again, so they're nearly a client. They're a client, and that was a nice one back to the sort of smart cities and the services. Actually, I'm not sure why we've got that. We were actually talking to the police in Glasgow, and unsurprisingly, they think they can see a pattern of when there are certain types of sporting events, and there's a big concert, and there's something else. I'll let your imaginations riff. Some of those are very obvious. There's going to be, Old Firm match, they're going to need more police, men and women. But there are lots of other combinations they think they can spot where there are different types of activity taking place in the city, and they want to know. They just want to know. So we're actually talking about, not with them particularly, but in general, we're trying to think about how you'd visualize this for a hospital, for a police force, and they would be able to determine the types of events that they thought were important and how that would affect service delivery. So Spotify's pretty obvious how they might use live events data, which they currently get some stuff from Songkick. Airbnb, Uber was great actually. There was quite a little story about Uber. Am I out of time? Keep me going. I'm nearly there. So Uber came to us about this time last year. They said, we've got this great idea. What we'd really like to do is position the Ubers in Edinburgh, where they're really needed late at night. And have you got a list of all the events taking place in August in Edinburgh? Yes, we do. We did say we thought that actually it was the most futile waste of effort, and that if they would just park in the Cowgate every taxi they had, that would probably solve their problem. But we have yet to persuade them to take their good idea and implement it more broadly, but you can clearly see the use case. And that indeed Fair Pilot is somewhere there. That's Fair Pilot is a service which is helping people position vehicles according to demand. So that's a range of, so keeping going. So a couple of, pretty much my last slide, I promise. RSS doesn't work for live events. RSS is all about things that happened yesterday. So if we had a service about all events that have happened in the past, RSS would be great. I could give you an RSS feed of events that have happened in the past. It isn't helpful for events that are happening in the future. It's not a date-based service. Our API is, you have to think about whether you're going to do it real time, fine by us, or whether you're going to load the data or cache it, and what the combination of those two. And you're going to need to think about whether you're loading it every day completely, your data set, or whether you're going to do it incremental. You're always going to need to do the full load, so you're going to have that. Are you going to have incremental? Certainly, it's date and time stamped, blah, 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 and you can do that. We have persistence of IDs for places and events. We did have a project to try and get the whole industry to accept standard URIs. That would be magic as far as we're concerned, because the whole ecosystem would be much better. But that hasn't happened. We've talked about event schedule and performance. You do need to be able to hang stuff at every level there. You can't just flatten the whole thing out. Categories versus tags always comes up. We have a tag-based system, so we work with visits. We've got 6 categories. You've got to map all your tags and to our categories, and that's fine. It can be done. You've just got to think it through. And as we get new tags, which are coming up all the time, how to keep mapping those. A place is, latitude and longitude isn't enough. Sorry, I keep doing that. The Finborough Arms and the Finborough Theatre are directly one above the other. So latitude and longitude is exactly the same. They are completely different venues. So, there is another dimension sometimes that is required. And yeah, you've got artist IDs. So are you going to have an ID for Beyonce, or are you going to have an ID for Beyonce's current tour and performance? So there are some nuances there. There is necessarily no easy answer that we've got, but you need to be aware of them as a developer. We do everything. You can have car boot sales in here, opera, festivals. We'll take any sort of event. We do actually have a whole taxonomy of live event types. And it's on our website, it's on about events data, but we do try to have the broadest range of events. We will list anything, but arts and entertainment's where we came from. So thank you very much. I've been talking about our business to business. Please go and consume our data at api.list.co.uk.